Stop.
Ja.
Hoi.
Hi.
Hallo. Een elleboogje.
Dus mogen we dit zo.
Hey, hoi Rian. Hoi Richard. Hoi Richard.
Waar zit jij?
Ik zit hier beneden.
Nou, dat is ook, dat betekent dat jij bent een van de...
Eén van de...
Hey, van de...
Eén van de twee. Ja, nee, dat was hartstikke goed. Lekker weer hebben.
Ik weet niet waar ze is. Ik dacht dat ze dat werk was.
Nee, nee, dat is echt.
Nee, nee.
Ja, dat hele vriendje is ook leuk. Ja, nee.
Het ruikt ook wel.
Wat ook wel heel mooi om te zien. Vossen en bomen van zichzelf blijven staan.
Ja.
Lijkt ook wel iets soepeligs.
Dat is
Je moet misschien ook een beetje zich proberen te positioneren.
ja.
Niet zo uit de kast halen.
Ja, ja. Ja, ja.
Maar zeg maar even dat jij even...
Wel goed.
Ja.
Als het opstelt.
Als je tegen anderen gezegd nee, we hebben geen alcohol.
Nee.
Alleen dus water en cola en alcohol. Dus hele ijzer water is het. En wel lekker, heel lekker bier.
Ja, zo best.
Dat doe ik aan het einde.
Geloof ik graag.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to V2, Lab for the Unstable Media. Welcome to the evenings of the memes.
it could be reversed with left memes or
I'm not there, but I can see you there. Providing the physical event hasn't been canceled due to COVID, you're sitting there at more or less a safe distance from one another. Some of you are committed or invested meme producers or researchers. I get you. You wake up in the morning and check the state of the meme universe for breakfast. You want to know what's trending, who's making what effects it's having on the meme community, and further afield, how memes are impacting society and if they're impacting politics. Then there are those of you who are meme curious. You take your memes alongside a daily diet of Netflix, YouTube, eFlux. Pre-COVID, you went to a lot of art events, openings, museum talks. You're interested in whether memes can change things politically. You've heard that they helped Trump win the 2016 presidential election. You're possibly hoping the left can do the same. And let me tell you that some of us have been hoping that for a long time. What Mike Watson is going to do now is talk about why that hasn't happened yet and where the online left might go from here.
there's a kind of hypothesis that the right wing enabled Trump to win the US presidential election. And the kind of counter to this is the idea that the left could do the same somehow. Trump won the election by so few votes in just a few states that one can't really attribute that win to any one thing. It's clearly a mixture of things. So we already have this kind of like narrative that's perhaps oversimplistic that appeals to people's thirst for answers as to how Trump upended the political status quo. It's a story, this kind of idea that the alt-right, as we call them, won the election, is a story that features hopeless young men making stuff in their bed, like the story of how home computers were made. It also explains what's going on with a certain generation to their elders. So we had a period where stories around millennials were hugely popular. We want to know what's going on with younger generations, basically. And this story of the, well, hey, they're making memes and they were partly responsible for the election of Trump. I mean, this kind of, it kind of plays into an idea of a kind of moral panic about the kind of things that young people get up to when they're not being watched. It also excuses Trump as the accidental outcome, almost comedic outcome that comes about by kind of, again, people messing around online in their houses, no real movement. So Trump is not in any sense successful. He's the outcome of memes, of the kind of the whims of algorithms that push memes, etc. So it's an accident, it shouldn't have happened, and it could be reversed with left memes, or it just might not happen again in that way anyway. And it employs things we're familiar with. And you have this alt-right Catholic. I don't know exactly the kind of ins and outs of why they decided Catholic, but an alt-right Catholic is fed up with Trump and is looking towards Yang 2020. And this was the case with many kind of people involved in alt-right memes. It was said that they were kind of moving towards Yang, and the kind of aesthetic of Yang memes that grew up as he went for the Democratic nomination were quite similar to earlier Trump memes. Here we see someone with a MAGA hat, and they kind of morph into a Yang 2020 supporter, and he has this kind of vaporwave type aesthetic on the hat there, and the money they're holding. So this thing of money is very important, that basically the Yang campaign was moving young disillusioned voters towards him for the $1,000. So they were like just really kind of going for the money. It was quite unclear at a point whether they were making fun kind of with him or literally making fun, you know, of him. So this kind of thing of Yang memes in which people were kind of going for the money was kind of a support of Yang, saying, hey, let's vote for this guy, let's get some money. But on the other hand, it was like a mockery, like, let's vote for this guy just for the money, and we don't care that it's not Trump. Before we were into Trump, but we can just as easily be into Yang for this $1,000 a month. This is another kind of reflection. It was kind of a move away. So here you go again. So it's Yang, and he's kind of pictured with this swag bag, which was quite common in these memes. Yang 2020 Vaporwave hat, which was actually an unofficial hat, but links him to Vaporwave, which was broadly an anti-capitalist movement with kind of high kind of tech principles. And you have Yang again and just this $1,000 note. So, I mean, getting the message across very clearly, but it's very unclear to what extent this helped Yang, and actually dropped out of the nominations. And he actually then went to CNN as a commentator. So, I mean, he's kind of very much damaged the kind of outsider reputation he had as somebody offering new ideas. Here he is taking on Bernie, Senator of Vermont. He actually was supporting, I think, Bernie in 2016 when Bernie went against Clinton. So it's kind of like saying he's kind of younger, fitter, and more happening than Bernie there. And this is like a whole family looking towards Yang, and a very vaporwave aesthetic there. So he became a CNN anchor. So this basically has ruined any credibility he has in that sense. And you know, one is to question if that credibility already was partly ruined by his kind of ideals being trashed. So the $1,000, which is basically supposed to offset the oncoming of automation, which would lose people many jobs, kind of being seen just as a means of getting high, of getting drunk. And so this kind of fits into what we call shit posting, which kind of means to post memes that are trashy, often in aesthetic. They don't need to be very accomplished, but also which are essentially aggressive and that are trashing a position. So one thing with shit posting is often with memes, as you would have seen, it's not really clear what they're standing for. That they're more about derailing a debate than they are about coming down on any one side. And this you can see a lot in right-wing memes and left-wing memes, and it kind of fits in with the image of, or the figure of what we call the edgelord. The edgelord is a figure which tries to move the debate always to the very edges, to be edgy, and you get the right-wing edgelord that will put swastikas and things in memes to kind of derail a debate, and you get a left-wing edgelord which responds to this directly. So this kind of fits in with the recent Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma. And The Social Dilemma argues that the point of the internet, of the algorithms on Facebook, on Google, Instagram, etc., isn't really to sell you something as such. There are these adverts which people hope to push to you, but often you actually end up getting inappropriate adverts, or ones that don't really fit what you want. But they're actually meant to get you clicking. So anything on the internet, you know, if it get you clicking, it's good for the internet. It's good for the big companies, because then they get data off you, they understand who you are, and they can sell your data. So they're looking to sell data. They're not looking to sell products. That's what's happening with the companies who buy advertising. But you know, you're going to see the products if you're constantly clicking on the internet. You're going to keep clicking on the internet if you're basically angry. And they say angry people click, okay, will click more often. So, you know, what's happening with memes, with political memes on the internet appears to be fitting into this. And actually what was said on The Social Dilemma is one gets pushed down one or other kind of tunnel of the internet. Once you're in a tunnel, that's all that the internet really needs, as in all the major corporations really need. They don't need that you're in a right-wing or corporate tunnel. They just need that you're in one. So the left-wing meme tunnel is good for commerce. So, I mean, I've had examples of this recently. This is one example of a very interesting story that I posted to my Instagram stories. You know, the Instagram stories when you post these kind of temporary images. And when I posted it, Instagram actually, on stories, I don't know if anyone actually gets this, but on stories, sometimes when you're posting, you get, it's either Instagram or Android, I don't know what, or it could be an Amazon app that's doing it. But it's when you're on your Insta, it homes in on something that you're posting, and it brings it out as an object, and it opens up a shop. But in this case, I posted this image and they homed in on the Make America Great Again hat, and then actually gave me a shop kind of window opened up, saying basically you can buy this, or implying you can buy this. So it basically tried to sell me the MAGA hat. Now, any search engine on the internet has to know that I'm broadly left-wing. So that was only likely to incense me. Whether it's a mistake or not, I mean, it is in a sense by design still that these mistakes can happen, and then they inevitably lead me to tell somebody to perhaps screenshot what happened and tell somebody, look, you know, basically I've been kind of told by an algorithm, you might want to buy this hat, which happens to be the hat worn by the niece of the world's greatest terrorist, arguably. And it happens to be a hat advertising your political nemesis. So, I mean, it kind of demonstrates that there isn't really a kind of desire to give you what you want on the internet. This is a similar situation where I took an image of this woman holding a Trump doll, but it does something quite different. It actually shows you like well, you can't see it, but it's like a load of, I think it's footballer stickers, and some kind of like haunted hotel. I think it's a game maybe, or DVD, a game probably, but it's not a Trump figure. It's something completely different. So equally, if you were a Trump supporter that posted that in all seriousness, you would end up getting something that was something entirely different. And it actually has the text Trump there, so it shouldn't be too hard. I got followed by this page, and I don't really want to be followed by a right-wing page, especially when it was only following at the time. Now it's following, here it says 253, it was following 150 people. So that kind of disturbed me. I kind of thought, well, why are they following me? And then I asked a friend, actually well-known meme analyst and artist, Joshua Chittarella, who has a brilliant Twitch channel and podcast. He basically said to me, it's actually a left-wing guy, it's a friend of his. And then if you look closely at the memes on the page, they are spoofs. They're not actually right-wing memes, but it's so borderline that actually initially I couldn't tell. And then as I look closer, I'm like, well, obviously it's a left-wing guy, but it's actually got a lot of right-wing followers who comment on the images and like them. So, okay, this is interesting, but apart from the element of the QAnon, which is anyway very worrying, you have a situation here where I get the irony, but what use is an irony that can't really be discerned by anybody. So you have left looking like right and right looking like left. So this is another example of the internet kind of derailing. Another example, a kind of last quick example, is on Insta recently. I was involved in a group chat, and it was basically a load of left-wing memers, quite young, I think, who were asking me and each other to basically hassle right-wing accounts. And I kind of refused. I said, this probably isn't the best way to get our message across. They were basically they were a spam group. They were a group of people who were encouraging spamming. And I just kind of thought this isn't really entirely positive. So, I mean, these three scenarios all contribute to kind of stopping any kind of rational interaction over the internet. This is one of the QAnon memes. I can't proceed effectively as I want to. I kind of like pushed off my kind of like, would-be intelligent, rational, calm way of doing politics. And I kind of like, I get exasperated. I don't think, haha, that's funny or edgy or interesting as someone who's analyzing memes. I kind of just think that's just flipping annoying by now. I mean, it's difficult to really know where to go from here. I would say that something's not really working with the internet, and it's not working for anyone. I said it seems to be working for the right wing somehow. But still, most individuals, even within the right wing, as individuals, won't be probably getting what they need off the internet at the moment. As somebody who wants kind of, shall we say, leftist values, but just like, values where everyone is respected equally and that people have opportunity to do stuff, I would like to see a left internet that was working for the left. And I'm not quite sure how that happens. But although there are a couple of channels that are kind of, I think, leading the way or may kind of show one way forward. And this one is called Art House Politics. And it's a guy who is in America, and he makes these kind of fairly abstract type videos. And they kind of, as we can see now, we're looking at one. They interact with politics, but they have a strong element of disruption that kind of fits in with the tendency of the avant-garde in art, of Dadaist, of surrealists, of cubists, in a sense of later abstract expressionists, even if they were kind of co-opted by the CIA, of constructivists in Russia who were then banned because they were too scary for the regime. There was kind of this, there was a tendency then to kind of embrace a disruption and abstraction as a way of disrupting the falseness of society. So World War One seemed ridiculous. The messages coming across to get people to enlist were false. There was constant propaganda. The overall kind of idea of we're fighting this war, you know, for good on both sides was somehow ludicrous, and it was all to do with basically capital and industry, and the way the industry led to certain war techniques, which led to up to hundreds of thousands of deaths through trench warfare, because it basically the technology was running quicker than the ability to understand how to use it. And people could see that daftness as they decamped, and they were privileged people, obviously. They decamped to Switzerland, and they set up the Dadaist and the Cabaret Voltaire, and then made these crazy performances. And it was kind of a way of out-crazing the craziness of the world. And I think that that may be the only way forward with memes. And I would say that there's that element, and there's also a sense of slowing down is allowed for by the abstract. If you listen to kind of like a piece of music that's very kind of ethereal, music is kind of the most abstract art form anyhow, or you look at an abstract painting, you know, you can kind of get lost in it. And when you get lost in it, you're no longer in the false kind of rigid, kind of insane irrationality. It's like insane rationality of capitalism. And I would argue that it's that we need to kind of go towards memes that kind of derail thought, because thought, rational thought, as we're engaging it now, is actually highly irrational. We're not able to do it, although it's still sold as rational because it contributes to production of money, which is a numerical value. For example, we need to kind of explode what we think is rational. We need to explode also what we know to be lies, and we need to in that gain a new sense of what is true, and we shouldn't let go of truth. So I think that's the values which we should be pushing, not deliberate, you know, stupidity. And I guess like an abstract means as I'm kind of pushing could be seen as deliberately silly or nonsensical, but it's not that they're not deliberately presenting a lie. You get out of that whole what is correct, what's incorrect. You get into kind of some other sense of being. So I would say we need to go through for a more abstract and slow meme making. I also think kind of quote memes that people actually have to read, although they're kind of heavily criticized by the right. There's kind of a joke about how much text is involved in left memes. These kind of memes can kind of get people reading, and there are channels like Capital Comrades with Conrad Hamilton, Elliot Rosenstock. There's someone else involved. I'll bring the name up somewhere. There are these Ernesto Varga. There are these three people involved, and they encourage the reading of Capital. I just think they finished Capital Volume 1. They're doing more, and they have a YouTube. I think they have a YouTube where they put these talks afterwards. They definitely have a Facebook where there's quite rigorous chat, and there are these ways of using groups to make quite rigorous chat. Often it gets derailed. It depends how good the moderator is, partly. But I mean, I think the sense of like free play and kind of craziness it means we have to keep somehow, and a sense that anyone can say anything. We have to kind of bring a humane element back, and I think this is through a kind of abstraction, not a deliberate lie, but a kind of meandering absurdity that can kind of lead to a sense of contemplation that can bring back in a kind of sense of slow, diligent thinking through of where we're at. So I would say that's what we want. We need slow memes. That's what I'm pushing. So I mean, I think we have to like look far and wide to find what is a slow meme, what is an abstract meme. But I would say that's where the research should be going, apart from memes that maybe point people into genuine concrete action. So a meme which would basically tell you, go and join your local BLM, Black Lives Matter, or local socialist group, or, whatever it may be, but you need to get your entry point somewhere, whether you're identitarian or whether you're a materialist in your politics. that those kind of things are very helpful. But that's one of the things we need to be kind of like always pushing that. But in terms of memes that get us thinking and that get us out of this mess, we need to basically out-weird the weirdness of the right, and they're dominating in that at the moment. And we need to like force a contemplation. So I've already spoken enough, I think. So I hope you enjoy yourselves there, and here's to slow meaning.
Welcome to my talk, Emotional Malware. Hi, I'm Caroline Senders. I'm an artist and researcher interested in processes, human rights, systems, and social networks. As a creator, I use design and art as ways to critique and explore the world around me through the lens of harm reduction. I've held residencies with the Harvard Kennedy School, the Mozilla Foundation, IBEAM, and I am currently a fellow with Ars Electronica's AI Lab, as well as a visiting fellow with the Weizenbaum Institute, and a member of the United Nations Data Governance and Children's Group. Design and art serve as explorative avenues of pathfinding and wayfinding, particularly in researching and unpacking memes, algorithms, and social networks. I like to use design as this kind of way to investigate and research the world around me, especially as a critical process and a creative process. This talk won't be exhaustive. It will only scratch the surface, so let's dive in. I've been researching social networks since 2012, when I started a master's program with the Interactive Telecommunications program at NYU. I wanted to work with Clay Shirky, who was looking at political uses of social media. And within that and from there, I started looking at feminist political uses of social media, which led me to studying online harassment. In 2016, while a fellow with IBEAM and BuzzFeed in their open lab residency, I began diving even more into online harassment research. And I started looking at online harassment groups in 2014, but then in 2016, right before the US presidential election, during my fellowship with IBEAM, I started looking at the rise of the American alt-right. And I had been already studying these spaces where the alt-right was congregating because the different harassment groups I had been studying, like Gamergate, were also in those spaces. And these were digital spaces that are Twitter, 4chan, Reddit, 8chan, and Vote. What you see is a graph I made in 2017 to help situate myself after I had been exclusively researching the alt-right. And I had been consulting with researchers with the Southern Poverty Law Center, an initiative in the United States who studies hate speech groups and then tracks these groups. These circles are not drawn to numerical scale, i.e. the size of the alt-right circle doesn't correlate to the amount of tweets I had scraped, but rather to the size of the idea and how much that sort of ideology was encompassing in terms of different groups. The alt-right was a really, really broad ideology, and it housed a lot of other more specific ideologies. Now, is this data? Not necessarily. If you were to ask a journalist if they could publish this, I'd have a really hard time saying yes unless it was an op-ed piece. This is a sketch of my data, and it sort of represents a culture in flux. It's a snapshot of that time, and this graph has changed, but only a little slightly. Let's zoom in. Within this ideology, you will see a scale from the severe to the more severe, and this lineup of white nationalists to then ex-military services as a scale of severity in hate ideology. At least it did in 2017. I made this other graph in 2017 as well as a hypothesis of the future, but this was based off my ethnographic work looking at the ironic nature of digital hate speech within spaces like 4chan, 8chan, and Reddit. It feels a bit more now, though, with the context collapse of these different terms and the overlapping of what these terms mean or how they're used interchangeably inside of digital spaces. If anything, the alt-right really isn't used very much at all anymore. It's not so much as an alternative, but now an established norm. And the groups now are even so much further right that they all kind of overlap and intersect. So what you see now is an updated graph where it's not so much a hypothesis, the alt-right has been removed, and everything feels collapsed on top of each other. That was an example of the pieces being installed. I didn't realize there was audio. So I've been using graphs as an artistic means to unpack research ideas and context within my work, and I view them in relationship to this descriptor of emotional malware, of how people share and create content within the digital commons. Clay Shirky wrote in his seminal book in 2008, Here Comes Everybody, on the new formation of the public commons inside of the internet. This term, Here Comes Everybody, specifically was a provocative emphasis of what the internet does well in terms of organizing. It allows people, as singular entities with no institutional affiliation, to organize and create new spaces of organization, in essence, to create new modes and meanings of what organization could mean and be defined as in digital spaces. To organize doesn't mean having anything rooted to physicality. Ideas could manifest, fester, grow, and replicate inside of software spaces. Ideas or conversations could be the reason of organizing and the nexus of communities. A tweet can start a space of large-scale conversation. That conversation doesn't need to be housed in a body or in a cafeteria or a meeting hall or any physical structure. It's now housed in the open internet or the digital commons. But in an era of misinformation and disinformation, of rising populism, of online harassment, of mistrust, of regular conflict, and of surveillance, what kinds of conversations exist inside of the commons now? When and how the commons serves us this emotionally fraught information is done through machine learning. What does transparency and clarity look like when our conversations are conflict-ridden and confusing, and the opaque systems are serving users nonlinear conversations through algorithmic intervention? In an essay written in 2017, I coined this term emotional malware as a way to define aspects and folds of fake news. Emotional malware is a form of digital and targeted propaganda designed to work effectively within social networks and to play up and play upon this sort of emotional relationship to fake news. Emotional malware fits into the political turmoil by sliding into a space that feeds upon consumers' emotions. It's a form of activated propaganda with all the designs and imitations to mimic trustworthy sources. In essence, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. What you see here are screenshots from a Washington Post article from Gamergate published in 2014 and a meme on the left from Gamergate, sort of signifying that Gamergate is a manifestation of free speech. Even within doctored images and context, memes serve as digital language and conversation. And I bring this up because I want to revise the definition of emotional malware slightly to include unintentional harms that still have large form consequences, and also to quickly define intentional and targeted harmful memes. These memes are just general content that is designed to hurt people, designed to be misconstrued. This style of intentional harm in content was heavily prevalent in harassment campaigns such as Gamergate. These kinds of content included posts such as photoshopped images of victims' faces onto porn or photoshopped images of victims in violent situations. Generally, this is described as harassment. And it's important to think of it as targeted harassment that can misconstrue or can create misinformation. Over Twitter direct message, the author and researcher Whitney Phillips and I talked about misinformation and harm. Phillips uses the terms like weaponized memes or polluted information to be able to cover a whole multitude of deliberate and inadvertent harms. Harm here is important since the content that was posted might not have been intended to be harmful or harassing, but then was used to harm and harass. The consequences are what matter more than what the meme was actually initially created to be. This is where weaponized memes gives a framing that allows for memes that weren't originally harmful or harassing, much like Pepe the Frog, but then become weaponized. Phillips emphasizes that the rhetoric and research should be focused on the impact of the content rather than the intention of the content, so the outcome and the ripple effects of harm are centered. This is where language matters. Naming an action can make it feel more real. I'm coming at this from a specific angle of online harassment, where naming harassment can help situate the harassment in reality. By naming an action like doxing, which is described as the release of someone's public documents, like releasing someone's phone number online, suddenly that action can be documented, tracked, and understood. Doxing is now almost a part of every major platform and website's terms of service as an action to not engage in. Language and naming can give truth to power. And within this context, I want to show you something I made in 2016, which was a graph to unpack and explain trolling. This graph is made in response to the misuse of the word trolling, especially by trolls. This misuse of naming every action, from the humorous to the harassing, as trolling, then flattened and minimized the harmful actions. Trolling is applied to so many different types of actions now that's better to think of it as a taxonomy rather than a singular word definition. It encompasses a range of varying actions, identities, and events that span from the humorously annoying to the dangerous. And I view this as a form of unpacking and defining things like emotional malware. If we can then start to situate the level and extremes of harms, we can help perhaps cut down on emotional malware harms. Let's dive in a little bit more. A particular troll is charted in the matrix based off the legality of the behavior and how hard it is to fix the effects, as well as American Western cultural and taboos, the emotional weight for the victim, and then the societal and personal power of both the troll and the one being trolled. The word troll describes a digital subculture, one that combines an irreverent sense of humor with a kind of abuse. For examples, pollsters trolled voters in the US in 2015 by asking them if the United States should bomb Agrabah, the home of Disney's Aladdin. 30% of Republican voters and 19% of Democrat voters said yes, which completed the joke about political ignorance. But the word here is also used for activities and actions that have serious and emotional legal ramifications. We use trolling to describe Anonymous sending pizzas to Scientologists, as well as someone describing a tweet that a person wants to rape a woman whose writing he dislikes. Humor is not the same as abuse, but calling both trolling links them together. This graph should be a living document, and for this talk, I've crudely updated it. This current graph represents the harms of now, because what also needs to be addressed within this is what changes the action, which was the change in power. Actions and harm are not if-then statements or events in isolation. Power changes the context of an action. I first made this diagram when Donald Trump was just a presidential candidate, and one who very rarely was not viewed to be a real candidate. It was viewed more as a joke. But now we see in 2020, Donald Trump is very much the United States president. And as the president, even him saying something that could be viewed as a sort of childish bullying about a particular person or event is actually extremely harmful given the context of who he is. Power in a person's platform changes the level of harm in a piece of content, a post, or even an event. And so this diagram, by changing, is trying to illustrate that power change itself. Power is this third dimension that I'm trying to capture inside of these diagrams and taxonomies that I make. I'll be jumping between years and phrases to illustrate how context and aesthetics affect our understanding of content, and how aesthetics and context and content are all related to power. Power changes context. And I want to bring up something really quickly. In political science theory, there is a theory that situates that the far left and the far right are much closer to each other, as opposed to being faraway opposites. This theory is called horseshoe theory. This theory was created by Jean-Pierre Fay, but I find this theory to be one of creating false equivalencies. I bring it up here to illustrate a point of harm, context, and power. Horseshoe theory assumes that all extreme actions are equal or more closely related, but this inherently flattens the work that social justice is engaging in, and it then misconstrues when anger is actually necessary. For example, my belief in that COVID is real, and my anger perhaps in those not taking it seriously, is not the same or equal to my mother's friends who believes vaccines will hurt her. Her sharing memes on Facebook saying COVID isn't real is not an opinion, nor is my anger towards her not just us getting along, because her memes are medical misinformation that can get someone killed. I want to briefly reference Sarah Schulman's book, where the title is helpful in explaining this form of conflict. Conflict is not abuse, and not all anger is the same. Anger at injustice is different than anger that demands the continuation of injustice. Whitney Phillips says it best in an article with the Boston Review on cancel culture. She writes, "In other words, it is not just their actions that aren't equivalent, they also are not treated equally. The anger of those seeking justice, especially those that are black, brown, female, or members of other minority groups, is minimized, pathologized, and knee-jerk condemned. By contrast, the anger of those enacting injustice against those very bodies, who tend to be white, frequently male, and members of dominant groups, is taken seriously, placed in context, and very often granted a path to redemption." And I bring this up because a graph I would like to make is one specifically rooted on power. And what does power mean when coming from different groups in society? This is something that needs to be addressed, particularly in relationship to meme culture. That an anti-vax meme isn't innocuous, perhaps, but in fact very dangerous because of the medical misinformation it represents and how it can harm many others. Same with anti-mask memes or anti-COVID memes. And what I've shown you earlier on could be argued to be more easily recognizable as harmful. Within the taxonomy, you saw events and content that were toxic, bullying, and harassing. But what about innocuous events? And how aesthetic choices can render social media content to feel harmless or even make content feel engaging. A current form of emotional malware is QAnon Save the Children posts, appearing in millennial Instagram influencer mom posts. This was widely reported in August 2020 by The Atlantic of this convergence of the millennial aesthetic combined with QAnon hashtags. QAnon is a far-right conspiracy group that used to exist more on the fringes of the internet. The Guardian describes it as a baseless internet conspiracy theory whose followers believe that a cabal of Satan-worshipping Democrats, Hollywood celebrities, and billionaires run the world while engaging in pedophilia, human trafficking, and the harvesting of a supposedly life-extending chemical from the blood of abused children. QAnon followers believe that Donald Trump is waging a secret battle against this cabal and its deep state collaborators to expose malefactors and send them all to Guantanamo Bay. What I'm showing you here are 3 different white mom influencer accounts off Instagram. We are looking at Jalen Schroeder with 55,000 followers, Ciara Chanel herself with 31,000 followers, and Lana Michelle with 86,000 followers. But how did QAnon converge with millennial moms? Through the Save the Children hashtags. This kind of convergence and supporting this call out of Save the Children is peak emotional malware. The aesthetics are pleasing. They fit into the slickness of the real internet, not a dark corner that we think where conspiracy theories lie. Like a thanks ad or an acne bag or a popular repinned post on Pinterest, these little squares feel different than the fervent, chaotic posts associated with conspiracy theorists. This is designed and it looks good, with a basic, feel-good call to action that almost anyone could agree with. After all, who wouldn't want to save the children with the white text on top of blush hues? The aesthetics and memes create norms, and they help shape what we view as legitimate content. Extremely zoomed out, it looks like these millennial aesthetics should be in either of these quadrants, casual, absurdist, or perhaps serious and absurdist. After all, who is harmed? What is really harmed here when we talk about caring about human trafficking in comparison to death threats or Facebook groups like Kenosha Guard, who had a call to arms event which resulted in Kyle Rittenhouse shooting multiple protesters and murdering 2 people? that is placed in the harmful and serious quadrant. After all, one post is asking people to arm up with weapons, and another is just misguided moms. These moms are concerned with human trafficking. And what's important, perhaps for another talk, would be to highlight all of the misconstrued facts around human trafficking, which actually is a very rare anomaly that doesn't happen very often at all. So let's hold on to that and zoom in a little bit. It's not a far cry or a step that these kinds of awareness raised by these moms is actually harmful, because it stems from QAnon conspiracy theories and it makes it look mainstream and norm. And these same theories resulted in Pizzagate, with an armed man storming a pizzeria in DC looking for missing and abducted children. Taylor Lorenz, a reporter, wrote for The Atlantic in 2019 that Instagram will be the next battle for misinformation. Pinterest as well already has been, with its algorithm sharing and serving up aesthetically soothing anti-vaccine posts until its engineers rewrote the algorithm to delist and suppress this content. Researcher Becca Lewis highlights that specific tension. That's a huge misconception that disinformation and conspiracy theories happen only in fringe spaces or dark corners of the internet. So much of this content is being disseminated by popular accounts with absolutely mainstream aesthetics, she writes. Perhaps the note to end on is this fact that conspiracy theories, harm, white supremacy, and growing fascism and violence don't happen in dark corners of the internet. They happen on our clear internet. They happen in the most obvious, large, and innocuous spaces. It's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. What I want to explore is its kind of mainstream aesthetics in a new series of graphs. I also want to deeply explore platforms, power, and people. I wonder if we can ever visualize or graph the platforms themselves and their algorithms as power givers. These taxonomies I've created show the harm, but what about the third dimension, the one that changes everything, which is power? Platforms are responsible, with YouTube serving up content, Instagram creating recommendations. I don't know if these power structures can ever be captured visually captured visually as a material in relationship to the harmful content they share up and serve. Perhaps it is enough to say it out loud here with you, that people and platforms are responsible to violence, sometimes rendered in the most gentle and banal of aesthetics. I wish I were there to take questions, but please feel free to send me a tweet or an email. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Kasser Rahmanian. I'm a meme maker and a meme curator.
Hello, and I am Mohammad Salemi, a meme critic and a meme historian. Together with other researchers at the New Center for Research and Practice, we have been thinking about memes while producing and curating them for different contexts, of which the 33rd edition of Ljubljana Biennale, curated by Slavs and Tatar last year, is the latest example. Our publishing platform, &&, includes several critical texts, both on memes, as well as the need for new mythologies, which are like the soul and the mind to the pictorial and visible part of the memes, something that most people are only capable to consider memes. In our brief presentation today, we will discuss 5 axioms. The first one particularly inspired by the writings of Richard Dawkins on memes. These fundamentals, principles, axioms, whatever you want to call them, have been tested in the course of time, and they should already be obvious and clear to everyone. But since it seems that the global society, which ironically is wholly consumed by the memes, is still unable to understand their ontology and function, we thought perhaps making these axioms explicit and verifying them through examples can possibly help contribute to an understanding of the phenomena from the inside. We say from the inside because, again, as practitioners, and unlike others invited to the panel who address the topic from an exterior critical position, we enter the discussion from the inside of this meme magic machine. Let's start with the first axiom. Memes are alive, and like living organisms, they self-replicate, and through this process, they evolve. Ideas can only transmit through embodiment and later replication, but they can only replicate once they're embodied. Like life itself, which is consisted of body and soul or body and mind, memes are ideas embodied in images. This is why when a meme spreads in print or in the digital realm, it transmits like a virus and evolves like a gene. From one copy to the next, the very much like a living virus, every transmission of a meme increases the possibility of its mutation, evolution, and transformation. As memes evolve, so do the images and ideas that they embody. They also evolve. As the weight of the original idea in a meme decreases and its place is taken over by newer and modified ideas, the surface of the meme, its physical attribute, is where the older ideas, stripped from the metaphysics, begin to rest in peace like corpses. Think of a graveyard where bodies are not buried, but elevated above the ground and on the surface. Think of Obama as the dead JFK, Kanye as the zombie Michael Jackson, and Nick Land as the plastic and made in China replica of Nietzsche. Axiom number 2. Memes are super beings, like mythical figures. Thus, there can be no meme without a myth. So, memes are not just carriers of ideas, but they are a technology that for their own sake and for the sake of their own functioning, they must turn ideas into myths. Through the process of their evolution, memes either engender, enforce, or sometimes even reinforce mythologies. The bottom line is, for a meme to function as a meme, it needs a particular set of dependent mythologies. Minus a myth, a meme is just like an image reprinted over and over, like fake money without actual economic backing. Real memes are material myths, materialized as in what anthropologists, cultural studies people, and sometimes even art historians call the material culture. To researchers and historians, material culture is human worldview in its purest form. Memes, however, go one step beyond capturing the metaphysics of a society, the narrative about their gods, demigods, or the supernatural humans, or animals. And unlike classical myths, whose validity as myths require the approval of the powerful elites, memes' validation stem from their own self-replication and their own auto-evolution. In this sense, memes are tautological myths in practice. Axiom number 3. Like the myths that they perpetuate, the simpler the memes, the wider their spread. Memes began simply, but quickly they turned complex. busy, maximalist, and multi-layered. For a moment between 2015 and 17, the more seemed the merrier when it came down to memes. This is when single memes try to explain the entire worldviews and ideologies in a single picture. These memes carry the hallmarks of modernist art, a genius artist making a final picture. No Andy Warhol and plenty of Jackson Pollock. But soon memes began to evolve back to simplicity and minimalism. Freed from the hand of artists with advanced Photoshop skills, the widespread use of simple mobile machines dictated that memes need to be created on the go, often with little or no image modification, maybe just the change of caption. Axiom number 4. Memes are actually dead. Painting became self-reflective in the late 19th century as photography took the mantle and became a critical art form. And a few decades later, with the ascent of cinema, which went to full avant-garde mode only when the arrival of television happened, this process repeated itself. Thus, as with other cultural and media paradigms, the era of memes as a powerful cultural technology must be over. And perhaps that is why we are beginning to study and reflect upon them critically. What pushed this process over this year was the global pandemic of COVID. Actually, COVID is the meme to end all memes. Like with other media and cultural forms, memes don't suddenly disappear from the face of the planet, but they lose their spot at the forefront of the evolution of the media, culture, and other technologies of mind.
Would tearing apart cruise ships actually save the industry? Business is booming at a sea dock in Aliaga on Turkey's west coast, where 5 cruise ships are being dismantled for scrap metal sales after lockdowns all but destroyed the industry. In March, US authorities issued a no-sail order for all cruise ships that remains in place. But on Friday, dozens of workers stripped walls, windows, floors and railings from several vessels. 3 more ships are set to join those already being dismantled. Camille O'Neill is chairman of the Ship Recycling Industrialists Association. He says they're turning the crisis into an opportunity for growth.
Maliyetinde bir sökümü geminin, bir yolcu gemisinin sökümü yaklaşık 6 ay sürüyor.
Dismantling a ship takes 6 months.
100'e yakın insan çalışıyor, her bir gemide 100'e yakın çalışıyor. Hani
100 workers work on each ship. And also not only steel of the cruise ship, but also the furniture, sofas, chairs, kitchen equipment are also being sold.
malzemeler olsun, bunların hepsini tek tek değerlendiriyoruz. Bir de ekonomiye böyle bir katkımız var.
So we add value to our economy. Lots of hotel firms are now in our establishment to buy those things.
Bunları malzemeleri değerlendirmek için buradalar.
O'Neill says the shipyard is aiming to increase the volume of dismantled steel to 1.1 million tonnes by the end of the year, from 700,000 tonnes in January.
What is incredible about memes and this video for us signifies that is the same way memes can build a culture, they can dismantle a culture. And that's precisely when COVID memes come in. Every COVID meme, like dismantling this ship, takes down another piece of the previously made culture and make it redundant or make it available for use in another realm. Let's go to the axiom 5. The end of memes is also the end of the Western concept of culture as the main technology of mind, maybe even the end of West as we know it. Based on what we historically know about the rise of empires, from the ancient times to very recently, culture and its weaponization play a decisive role in empire building. But when it comes to the rise of China as a new world empire, culture is somehow absent. How many Chinese fast foods, celebrities, pop bands, or movies or movie stars do we know? What does it mean when the future world power does not need to force its culture and virtues onto the world in order to reign? And what is its substitute for culture in this process? To understand the diminishing role of culture worldwide, we need to return to its Marxist understanding as a superstructure which arises out of real activities in the economic base of the society. But here, we propose that culture, particularly the material culture, is produced when the surplus economic wealth cannot be immediately absorbed back into the general economy of power. So it gets stored in images. So to rewrite the situationist formulation of the spectacle and the mechanisms of the image-based society that they describe, we say images emerge when surplus economy, surplus prosperity, and surplus power gets stored and preserved in images. Thus, to understand this image world, it was never enough to analyze its physical attributes, but to also focus on the economic processes or their lack, which have contributed to the rise and expansion of this particular kind of world in the West. If post-war prosperity in USA and Europe gave us the age of color magazines, color television, and blockbuster cinema, it was the 1980s to 2020 and the dismantling of the industrial world in the West and its outsourcing to the cheap labor made available in Asia, particularly the communist China, that gave us globalization with its upgraded image world of cable television and eventually the internet. To skip the 1990s and most of the 2000s, the internet and mobile computing via smartphones, which enabled the social media, which then fueled the meme world, could have not become a mass participatory movement without the synthesis of the Silicon Valley innovation and Chinese communist labor. Conversely, the massive inequalities at the root of all problems in the heart of the capitalist USA, with its celebrities, influencers, and meme machines, was made possible by the massive organization of labor, which could only be possible under communist and centralized government. Just to explain it, in one end, you have an evolved communist system that make massive amount of labor at a very great price available to the West. The West, using this labor, begin to dismantle its own egalitarian system brick by brick and employs this labor to increase profit. The increase of the profit is the cause of massive inequalities that are at the heart of what is happening in the Western world right now, from Europe to America and back. Through this process, namely globalization, a thing called the global economy was first created. Through this economic system, the rise of planetary computation was accelerated. The democratization of computation, first with personal computers and later with mobile devices, would have been impossible without what China, in terms of labor and raw materials, has contributed to this process. Inside China, the above processes helped elevate the quality of life in the last few decades for millions of Chinese people. People who only a few decades ago were considered by Western standards as third world peasants. Externally, however, this process makes China more than complicit in the decline of the Western capitalism and its so-called culture, from art and photography to social media and memes. To simplify things to the level of memes and to generalize, we can say China gave us mass planetary computation, which in turn gave us social media and memes, which in turn gave us Donald Trump, which in turn tragically downgraded USA and its global culture. This is not a conspiracy. We really think that memes and COVID do relate to each other. Trump's presidency can easily be considered as the moment when a meme, here we are talking about Donald Trump himself as a powerful meme, embodying some of the axioms above, took over the administration of a complex global economic, political, and cultural system. Then the COVID pandemic happened, which, as scientists agree, originated in China, the country most suitable to deal properly and swiftly with any pandemic due to the same qualities that we described above in relation to the development of its labor market, meaning the power of the state to make and enforce decisions centrally. Meanwhile, America and the rest of the world, to some degree, fell behind in general because they were not as prepared to deal with the COVID pandemic, as they tried to cope with it in their own capitalistic ways, and we're still falling behind. The inevitable rise of China as a world superpower has little to do with its cultural advantage and has a lot to do with its economic and technological superiority. A fact that has been unfortunately kept away from the Western public until now. A fact that the COVID pandemic is forcing everybody to finally see, if they can just open their eyes. That's why we're here to say, goodbye memes, goodbye culture, goodbye America. This is why it should be easy to see why memes are over and why culture is not as important as we might think it is, and how we will be less dependent on these technologies in the coming years and more on physical ones, like robots and like algorithms. So we ask at the end, are we ready for the future? Are we ready for this future? Thanks.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I'm live, which I think is great. Maybe you should get a drink or something so we can get the sort of atmosphere here going. I feel it's nice to have some live human being probably in front of you, right? It's, yeah, at least I noticed that it's a new thing, right? To be in a place where you're watching people that are not there. Great talks, by the way. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, really, seriously, maybe get a drink while I will give you my introduction. So yeah, I'm Kim Groot from Mona Lisa's, an artist collective from Rotterdam. And today is a very special day because I'm going to launch Talk to Meme, which is, I don't still have the right word for it, but I would call it a chat app. So it's a kind of app in which you can talk to a meme character. And this meme character today, because there will be more characters, is Karen. And I'm going to introduce Karen to you today. But first, before I do that, I will shortly tell you a bit about, well, not really about our work, but how we've been looking into specifically role play as a part of meme culture. Also because this idea of role play and identity play is part of the app, which you will later notice. So, yeah, and also which you will later test. So again, it's a special moment because you will, I'm going to present you the prototype in the end, and you're going to be my first, yeah, let's say test user. So I'm also saying that right away, really curious afterwards to hear from you what you think of the app and what you feel, what you've really enjoyed or what you see should be in there. So please don't walk away too quickly, really approach me at the end to see what you think. Anyway, so yes, I think this can be the next slide. So the protagonist, the main character in the app later on is Karen. In Talk to Meme is Karen. So Karen is a meme. I will sum her up now, but I'm going to show you a video which also sums her up. She's a meme, a kind of anti-figure, and a mimetic weapon in the battle against white privilege. So she's a very hyped meme right now in the current debates about racism and white privilege. She won't wear a face mask. She screams at Starbucks employees. She is afraid of black people. She knows her rights and she acts upon it. And well, again, as I said, you will get to know her later in the video. So how about those kinds of memes with a center figure in it? Well, I think memes visualize, but also imagine or criticize certain social figures. That can be figures that represent a kind of class or race or gender. And these figures, like Karen, they touch upon current conflicts or issues that we have to deal with. And so sometimes these figures are anti-figures. The next slide can come up. Such as Karen or this boomer figure, the boomer, which is a mocking term for people from the baby boomer generation that are hated by Generation Z for what they've done to the world. So these kind of anti-figures like the boomer and Karen, they fulfill a need for othering, which means they fulfill the need to mock and stereotype people that are different than you. Then there's also other kind of figures that, figure up that are the figures, main figures in meme culture, and those are figures that are more playful forms of self-identification. So you see them here. So these memes are about people themselves. People make these memes to turn their own character and identity into a role play. So you see here the zoomer, the coomer, the doomer, the bloomer, and it's a particular meme with this text around a figure that you draw yourself, which originates from Wojak, but has now come along to become the zoomer, the coomer, the doomer. And in this zoomer, coomer or doomer meme, people profile actually their lower selves, their bad parts, right? They question norms around their lifestyle, ethics, their morale, but also their body, with an extreme ironic distance to themselves. So they make this about themselves. with a great bunch of irony. The next slide. Yeah, actually the next one again already. Yes, this one. The visual transformation in those reaction phase memes, such as the Zoomer Wojaks that you see here and the brainlets, they show an extreme transformation of faces and of the body. It's no longer referring to a regular body, it is a really regressive body. So this meme really manipulates social expectations by extreme downplaying and mocking of yourself. Yeah, next slide. Another example of this kind of memes that are about self-identification and about role play, let's say, so playing out your identity, is this political compass meme. It shows how you can move from being an anti-empathic nihilist, for example, today, to being an anarcho-primitivist the next day. The group of memers showing their daily political and ideological transformations like this, like political journeys on the political compass, are referred to as politigrammers, or politigram, which is a term coined by Joshua Citarella. So what I find really interesting is that meme culture is a place where normative concept of identity can be enacted, can be changed, can be appropriated, subverted. So it's the radical, but at the same time very playful transformation of identity that interests Mona Lisa's. Our project researches this constant play with identity and its effect of creating an ironic distance to yourself. An ironic distance also to your personal preferences. And we think that this ironic distance is a helpful or even necessary condition for the emancipation of social norms. Identity play, the identity play in memes is also interesting because it's performative. These images that you've just seen, maybe if you go back just to show them again, or this one, yeah, they're all really, I see those as performances. I mean, they are drawn, but people are turning either themselves into these characters by drawing these memes, or by even, as you see, literally turning yourself into a doomer girl. So that's very powerful. It's then so much of a living, embodied experience. It's not just a rational thing. Then next point, the darker and the, let's say, anti-moral and the politically correct side of memes is necessary to throw you off board, I think, and then to grab your attention. And I think that's a very interesting condition to let go of your settled beliefs. So my question is to think about whether the condition that memes create might be really helpful to eventually allow you to sort of imagine yourself as different, or to allow yourself to play with your own identity. What we do in our work is that we borrow mimetic figures like Karen, which you will see later on, and we invite people to debate these norms around identity as well. But we also invite them in our work to role play yourself, to role play, to step into a role play within the conditions that meme culture has actually produced. So that means that within, I hope maybe when using the app, but also in other of our projects, you will both be ironically nihilistic, while at the same time radically honest. Since those are the conditions that memes make possible. Another condition that is interesting that memes produce, and that I'm trying to produce as well, is that trying to say and make things that actually cannot be said, like memes do. Enjoying a certain kind of irresponsibility in your behavior is something of interest to me. Trying out thoughts and attitudes to see how other people respond to it. And I think that meme culture could potentially, or does potentially have these conditions that we should use to be able to create also those conditions of being in a state where you can test out thoughts and not maybe be taken responsible for it yet. So it's kind of this room for playful imagination that it allows us. Okay, so now to Talk to Meme. In Talk to Meme you will meet Karen, and before I tell you some details about the process of making Karen, I'm first gonna show you a video to get an idea of who Karen actually is.
Meet Karen, curious mix of privilege and privation, whose veneer of civility is fragile and easily punctured. Her great-great-grandparents were still miserable and poor, but things have been looking up for Karen's gene pool after the Second World War. Since colonialism was set aside in favor of plain old global exploitation, a large cut of the white working classes of the so-called affluent societies have been bribed into compliance by giving them a share in the best capitalism has to offer. Yet Karen hasn't yet attained the moral luxury of being so socially removed from people of color and other minorities that it becomes quite natural to sympathize with their predicament. In fact, her intolerance of people of color perhaps stems precisely from her residual socioeconomic proximity to them.
She thinks it's cute that her driver almost hit my kids, and she thinks she needs to take a video of it.
I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately.
You want to call the police on him for having a barbecue on a Sunday at the lake.
Yes.
All of these women have been identified as Karens.
Karen has mastered the social survival art of weaponizing her privilege when she finds herself in a matter of dispute with a fellow human being lacking the aforementioned privilege, such as lower service personnel of the African American persuasion. As a meme, however, Karen has become a weapon of the weak turned back against her. Those forms of stereotyping violence that people of color are daily subjected to in the formerly United States of America. In the spirit of classical irony then, Karen reaps what she sows.
Are refusing to wear masks despite serious rules out there actually requiring them in certain areas, and in a very disturbing trend, enforcing mask usage has actually led to some violent encounters across the country.
Karen, 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 I'm begging of you, please just wear a mask. You go on rants at Trader Joe's, sit on the ground at the Costco, say wearing masks is the devil's law.
Every single one of you that are obeying the devil's laws are going to be arrested.
You wreck displays at Target stores, you throw good cold cuts on the floor, and please stop talking about your drawers, Karen.
I don't wear a mask for the same reason I don't wear underwear. Things gotta breathe.
Karen, 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 I'm begging you, please don't lick that glass. Karen, 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 please just wear a mask, you big dumbass.
Karen rages against an unknown cause that she holds responsible for her structural misalignment with the world. But now and then, this cause becomes manifest. The other day, her black neighbor put out the trash approximately 17 minutes before the assigned garbage collection slot. Upon calling the municipality's office, she ranted against the call center employee for questioning the severity of the transgression for approximately 3.5 minutes. She then decides to contact the police instead.
Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life. There is an African-American man. I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately.
Ja, want die vorige was die... Ja, dan die scenario's. Ja. So that was Karen. Did anyone already know her, Karen? Yeah? So she's widely known. So in the app later on, Talk to Meme, you will meet Karen. And yeah, you will be able to talk to her. And we've developed eventually a chat because I wanted you to be able to have a more sort of intimate contact with Karen, also to find out what that means, how you can, or what that means also to the Karen meme. So that's something I would like to talk about also later on with you. So the chat is based on a behavioral script that is made by just watching a lot of Karens online, and of course it addresses several issues that are related to the Karen, which clearly is the debate about white privilege, because Karen has privileges that she clearly acts upon. Originally, the Karen is a black meme, so it actually comes from, let's say before this time, where Karen was already known in the African American, let's say, part of the US, where she was already a known figure, so to say, someone who would, act upon her privileges. And now she has sort of come back, and this is still an issue, but now she has become more and more. So she's also the Karen that doesn't wear a mask. She's also an anti-vax mother, so more and more, this meme is loaded with stereotypical meaning, so to say. So what I did is that in the chat, I have followed the development of Karen as she develops online, but of course at the same time, new perspectives have developed, because when going into dialogue with a Karen, you will notice that of course she also changes, and of course she's also, I don't know, a human being. And at one point I of course really sort of hated her and wanted to get rid of her, and at the same time I pitied her, because then when you read on and on and on, of course there's also other perspectives to think about in this Karen meme. Such as, for example, isn't this meme actually also really a sexist meme? so there's the racism debate, which is in there, which you will also see and read about in the chat. You will recognize these topics, so to say. Yes, yeah, for example, okay, so Amy Cooper that you've just seen in the end, that was the last scene. Amy Cooper is the Central Park Karen, and she, oh, that's outside. She is the, one of the threads in the chat I've based on her, and she is an example, for example, of how the chat dialogue also changed, because for example, she lost her job after this event. So then you think, okay, well, what if, you know, I at least make this part of her story, and what does that do to Karen when talking to her? So in a sense, from Karen being more like a, yeah, let's say a sticker you put on people, yeah, starts to develop to becoming more than that. But at the same time, she is also, as you see, she has racist ideas or background. So I was also thinking, okay, should that be reproduced, and how to deal with that? So there's also a thread in there where she's accused of being a racist. Then there's also a thread where actually she accuses you as a player in the end for being a racist, because she claims that the Karen, the word, is actually similar to the N-word. So she says that Karen is a racial slur. So anyway, you will notice that there's different paths to go in the dialogue. I'm inviting you to have a look at it. In the next slide, you will see that yeah, in the future, there will be not only Karen. So the thing is that this whole chat app is not only about Karen, it's about the most current and hyped mimetic characters that I want to introduce, and that I think that through a chat is a sort of maybe like was said in the second lecture, maybe it's a way of slowing down the meme, because you will, you know, go into a conversation with this main character, which completely changes it. So I would like to invite you to take your phones and go to talktomeme.projects.v2.nl, because then you can experience it yourself. Yes, I will show it as well on screen here. And the best experience with the chat app is to, oh yeah, maybe you can show that on the slide that I had there. Yeah, this one. So you know that if you're in your browser in Safari, there's this button with the arrow. That's a way to add the app to your home screen, so it becomes a kind of app icon on your home screen. And if you then go there, you will have the best experience of your talk with Karen. Of course, you can always, whenever you want to, you can take it off. But for now, it's the best way to access it. And I will put it also on the big screen. Yeah. Huh? Is the...
Quickly. Yeah. Just before trying it out, I just want to briefly, because we're due to corona measurements, we have to finish by 10. So also, if you please do try it. But I really first wanted to thank a lot some people, and then we can try it. So first of all, I want to thank Jerry Galle, who's our V2 fellow, who's been researching the memes and inviting all of the speakers. I want to also thank the speakers, Boris de Bakker, who also couldn't be here because they're both Brussels-based. All of the artists were sadly also abroad, so I was happy with the contribution they gave online. It will be made available online, and I want to thank Kim, of course, and the Mona Lisas, and Jan from V2 who worked with this. The bar is still open, but there will be one final round because we really have to kick you out at 10 o'clock, and I'll give the laptop to Kim. Thanks all for coming, and thank you, Kim, for the presentation.
I mean, I think someone else, maybe you want to do it. Answers that special reaction to. Yeah, let's. How? Yeah. You can also probably, if you press the space bar after now, for example, if you do space, yeah, then you. Crazy. She's curious. I mean, I think I've explained a lot about Karen, but actually it should be a way to just get to know Karen. Are you doing something else, or is it really this funny?
No, it's good. It's really good.
Yeah. No, but probably, how do you say that? I spoiled Karen by just explaining everything already. I mean, this is actually a way to get to know her. Yeah. And to get to know her various, the topics that she addresses, right? That she's related to.
Can you just ask any questions as well?
Yeah. Yeah, you can ask these. Yeah, so that's, I mean, yeah.
You're getting a response.
She wants you to, she wants you to find out what happened yesterday. So I think the main, let's say, question that is behind this Karen now is, what would you do if an African American man approaches you in the park? I would say that what it all comes down to, because I've, let's say, based the whole dialogue on the Central Park Karen, the final Karen in the video, which was, someone who met, which is a specific Karen me, the Central Park Karen. And so that's, of course, a very problematic question already. So you're sort of challenged to think about that, but also, to think about your answer.
Is there a way to get out of this loop? Because I've been trying for the last
yes,
5 years.
definitely, yes. Which loop were you in?
Every time you ask her what happened, she goes back to
No. If you use the, use the black, let's say how do you call that? The letters that are black instead of yellow. Those direct you to different threads in the dialogue. So if you keep on following the words that, let's say, the predictive text gives you, then you will get, like
I'm going to try that.
up
I
on the
completely
hills.
missed that, to be honest. Like, I saw it, but it didn't even...
Oh yeah, okay,
post
no,
in my head.
yeah.
I'm still going in a loop, so I think.
Yeah? Oh yeah, you're still, yes. So, yeah, maybe if you try one black letter, and then, yes.
I did this before.
Yeah? And now you can, as soon as it's written, it's like in regular page. You can do part, care, yes, then you will, oh yeah, okay, yeah, and then there's again your options. So of course, in a sense, Yeah, now you're in Have you already, yes, where did you get? Where have you been?
What kind of dog?
We're figuring out what kind of dog, yeah. Did she send her already the picture of her dog?
Oh no, she sent
No.
a picture.
Oh,
She says
sent-
it's called
You can ask
Spaniel.
her for her dog Henry.
Send pics.
Oh,
Oh,
she
it
sent
didn't
dog.
happen.
Yes, so she also sent pictures.
Me a picture.
Oh yeah, you see, you're already quite far. I think this is one almost like, now you can type something and then she gives one last direction. I could sort of give away the, how do you say that? All threads, they end by Karen saying that she wants someone else to talk to, and then she gives you her social media icon so you can share Karen actually through WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram. So then you know you're actually sort of at the end of a thread. But I think there will be, yeah, there's about 5 to 6 threads. You see, this was what I mean, where a way for Karen to say bye, and also, of course, a way to, for you to have someone else talk to Karen. Yeah, I wish I could talk with emojis. Yeah, okay. This is something. Works fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Emotions are. Emotion parts. I've talked about it in this program, and for now. Yeah.
No, it could be quite difficult.
Yeah, the whole thing is, of course, that it would work best if it's, let's say, yeah, it's a prototype, and I mean, yeah. One thing that I would like to develop is, of course, that it allows for even more, let's say, open input.
So is it then, for example, a neural net, or is it just like
Sorry?
it's not learning it as it goes?
No, yeah, but that's possible. But not right now.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, because there's also that app like Replica.
Yeah, okay.
I just heard of this.
No.
And it's a bot that you like
It's
speak to, and it learns who you are and then replicates you. So you more or less become best friends with yourself. And it's like a chat like this.
Okay.
You can download. I downloaded it before. Replica, but it's really creepy. And it talks to you like it's your friend. Like, hey, how are you today? Like.
Okay. Yeah. So, but it's
it's a bot that
learns through you, through your writing. It's yeah.
I remember
That's the first thing.
it asks you really personal questions sometimes as well.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it reminds me a little bit of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the logo is like this little egg with some like a something as though something's hatching.
Okay. Which is in the replica.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the like logo of the app.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Now we get a drink.
I don't know how to type for it.
Nou, kom je ergens? Verschrikkelijk lachen, want ik weet natuurlijk helemaal niet wie Karen is. Maar toevallig ben ik door een van mijn kindertjes op Karen gewezen, omdat ik zo beschermende moeder ben.
Oh, oké.
Leek ik op Karen.
Oh god. We hebben een Karen in the house.
Ja. Maar toen zeiden de anderen, nee,
dat is niet zo.
Je
Nou
bent
ja,
geen
kijk,
Karen.
dat is een ander ding. Het is een heel Amerikaans figuur ook wel. Merk ik. In ieder geval, ik denk dat er ook wel. Er zijn vast wel
Hebben jouw kinderen jou wel eens een Karen genoemd?
Nou ja,
Ja, omdat ik
op
ben
één onderdeel, weet je.
overbeschermend en dus ben ik dus ook...
Ja, zeker, heel graag.